Good evening. I'm Coulter One-Kinder. I'm already into the 420, damn it.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, tie into negative. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
What are you doing? Nothing? Why not? Trying to get on this lifestyle radio website. Kind of like a co-website.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.
I don't know what Babylon wants from me. Every time we plant the yago chop the tree. They look we for nothing and through it the key. We always no apology. But the into you so hungry they want victory. And we gonna keep fighting for equality. Humanity should all be free. And this is what we education. We never worry about Babylon in the things that we do. Oh no, they never see me fading. Never see me fading. Never see us fading. Oh no.
Hello everyone and welcome to the Pace Radio Show. We are live. Yes, we are live here at 420radio.ca as we are every Wednesday at this time. Tonight I am excited to announce that I'm being joined by our newest joint host who has extensive knowledge about cannabis and the business around it. Their guest is involved in an important event and educates people about cannabis. But before we bring our guest on the program, I'm going to do what I always do, and I'm going to have a quick chat with my joint host. But tonight, I get to introduce our new joint host, and I'd like to welcome Julie Carollo to the Pace Radio Show and as the joint host of the program. Hello, Julie. How are you?
Thank you, Al. You get a B+ on my last name. That was pretty good.
B+. I'll work on that. I'll try to get an A before the night is out.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be a part of the show.
We are very excited to have you join us here, Julie. Not only here on the Pace Radio Show, but also with Lifestyle Radio and 420radio.ca. So, Julie.
Yeah, you guys have done important work for a long time, so it's an honor.
Yeah, thank you. While we know some information about you, I'm sure there's some people out there that may not. Being that this is your first show here with us, let's take a couple of minutes maybe to give people a bit of a bio of what, I mentioned, business and cannabis knowledge and stuff. Some of the things that you've been involved in the past and in the future.
Okay, thanks. Yeah. Well, I started in the cannabis industry 14 years ago, and I came from the yoga industry and organic textiles, organic farming. I was a yoga teacher to kids and ran a yoga studio and sold an organic yoga clothing line. And was really an earth mama, very conscious of, new style business, conscious capitalism, empowered consumerism, and was really devoted to it with different companies that I worked with in yoga and the health and wellness sector, et cetera. And then I was given the opportunity to enter the vaporizer manufacturing segment 14 years ago, well, 15 years ago now. And I was blessed to travel the world as sales and marketing director for Magic Flight Vaporizer. And it was just an incredible experience because I got to take all my years of experience in business and conscious capitalism and help to, take this message out. But also I learned so much listening to so many stories of people globally who suffer under prohibition or suffer under the road to legalization. And so it really inspired me. And then I met my partner, co-owner in the magazine, John Vergados in Canada, after a Treating Yourself show. That was 5 years ago. And we became friends and started working together. And we ended up becoming business partners. We ended up, really taking hold of the magazine together and fighting for it together. And saving it together. And so, forward 5 years, I'm here now, and we're still on the front lines fighting on behalf of what I like to call a green renaissance, not a green rush. And that's what this show is going to be devoted to, is covering change makers and thought leaders and stewards of the plant and planet and the people who are really being the change and really are evidence of that. And that's why I definitely reached out to Tim as soon as I found out that I was going to have the honor of having a radio show devoted to that, and invited Tim on, because to me he is an embodiment of that.
Yes, it sounds. I have to agree with you there. The as far as your background and stuff with Skunk Magazine, you've been involved. Like you said, you're a co-owner. Now you're getting involved in radio. So you're doing into a different media. Is this something that you thought of that you would have gotten involved with so many years ago?
Well, it's interesting you say that. I'm an artist. I'm a dancer and a performer. I've done performance art and theater, in my early years and throughout my, 20s and 30s. Now I'm 42, ripe old age of 42. and so, I kind of am I've been for the last, many years, 5 years, in a kind of listening mode with the universe, and kind of letting it show me how all of these, talents wish to be expressed. I'm devoted to sustainable change taking root on the planet, and however my lifetime is meant to be used, I'm in service to that. And so it's been really beautiful, actually, Al, to see how all of this is bubbling up to the surface. I've just been blessed to go and speak at a conference in Maui, and it seems that is going to be more a part of my work, and I'm very thankful for it. And it's incredible. It's absolutely incredible to be out there uniting great hearts and minds globally, helping each other, myself and everyone else, to stay inspired so we can continue to do good work towards this aim. So, yeah, it's kind of wild. And no, I didn't think so. I mean, when I first started working at Magic Flight, I had to come out to my 80-year-old grandparents and, explain to them that I was a responsible cannabis user, and show them the science and really take them in. And, fast forward now, my grandmother uses cannabis cream as her miracle cream for her arthritis. She takes a supplement, and she's thriving, and she's proud of this work. She cuts out newspaper clippings. So, yeah, it is quite wild, and I'm just following the universe's lead, really.
Yeah, exactly. I've been involved in it just as long as you, and yeah, it's a big change from when we started doing this to what it is today. Way it's accepted and talked about in society.
Absolutely. So. We have watched history in the making, and we have been a part of it. It's beautiful.
Yes, yeah. It's good to see change like this. All right. Well, Julie, what do we say? We get the show on the go here?
Yeah, I'm excited to share to Blake with our community.
Would you like to introduce your guest, or would you like me to do it?
Well, you can start, and then I'll jump in.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Well, this time I would like to welcome our guest, who I said is involved in a very important event and educates people about cannabis plus so much more. I'd like to welcome Tim Blake to the Pace Radio Show. Hello, Tim. How are you?
Great. Glad to be here.
Hey, we're very happy and honored to have you join us tonight. I've been on your website, see all the terrific stuff. I've listened to some audio. I've heard some people talk about the things that go on down there. So I'm really eager to hear what happens at this event that you do.
Well, it's really fitting that we're starting out here tonight with Julie and Skunk and John, because really the cup exploded out of my small campground and event center, Area 101, largely because of John's influence and his guidance and suggestion of us really looking at the show as a different type of show and making it a much larger, more inclusive event. So I'm really happy for what John did and Julie coming behind and helping him. It's been a marvelous thing to watch how much Julie's contributed to that and how tough it was for John because the first year he sponsored us, then he got hit by those charges. And he got wiped out for 5 years, and he wasn't able to grow with us and explode this whole industry. Skunk should be they are a major part, but they should be the biggest player in the game because of John and Julie. But Julie, primarily there, has just done an incredible job of not only guiding Skunk and keeping it alive, but also moving it from being more of a seed-based magazine sales and whatnot to really being focused on the culture and regenerative farming and the community and stuff. It's really been really good to see. And now, as she said, she's out speaking and becoming a kind of elder spokesperson herself. So it's really good. I'm really proud of her.
There you go, Julie. Kudos to you.
Thank you, Tim. That is very, very kind, and I love you very much for it, Tim. Thank you so much. And I want to help people to understand, because I am going to lead you towards that story, but I wanted to go back because I was looking back that you had purchased, Area 101 back in 1998. Yeah. And your focus and intention with the land is beautiful. And, I've had the privilege of driving up and down the coast several times now. I've been taking stage up to Eureka, to Apprentice and things, and he's coming into his manhood, and I've been passing by your place, and it's like a beacon for everyone. And I wanted to kind of have you take a moment to explain the intention of Area 101 before we even begin to talk about Emerald Cup, and if that's really the seed, and what's it like when you pass by on the road. Could you tell people?
Well, you're running up the highway from San Francisco. You're a couple of hours north, almost 3 hours. You get to Laytonville. You're getting into the heart of the Emerald Triangle, upper Mendocino, and then you leave Laytonville and you really hit the true mountains about 8 miles out. The terrain changes and you really enter the mountains. And we're down in a canyon running through that. And I have a property right on the highway, right in the middle of that canyon, called Area 101. It's a 150-acre campground and event center. And I had the property across the street, and actually the Area 101 was called the home of the night people by the police and law enforcement because there were 23 crankers, families living there when I came into contact with these people. So I was sitting in my house across the street and thinking I was crazy because people were staring at me at night. I mean, I wasn't doing drugs. And they were staring at me. I didn't realize it. They robbed me a bunch of times over here. The last year before I got it, they had an explosion, a stabbing, attempted murders. I mean, you name it. And they said if they ever had a probation violation, that was the first place they went. So I fought with those tweakers growing cannabis here for a couple of years, and then I got the opportunity to buy the property. And it was really a miraculous thing because you had to clean up all the gas tanks because of the MTBE, the additives to the gas. And so nobody would touch Area 101 because there's a river under it, and they figured it'd be a $500,000 cleanup. I just gotten out of jail. I've been meditating for 45 years. My meditations told me with my tarot cards to go ahead and risk it, $40,000 for the assessment, and I wouldn't get a penny back if it wasn't any good. But if I passed and it was good, I made the lady a promise to give me a great deal. So I got that place for a really great price because it was the cleanest site in California. All we had to do was pull the tanks out. So that was meant to be. It came to me, and then we started cleaning it out. We got the crankers out of there. It took us $26,000 just in dump fees. This was back, 20 years ago, and about 2 years to clean it up. And after it got polished, we did a couple events there, and it just popped up that, first the name came in. What do we want to do with it? I've been studying conspiracy and UFO theories for the last 40 years, back to Billy Meyer. And when you come up on the highway, you see a billboard with a hand-painted sign with a UFO landing in the forest. It says, "Welcome to Area 101." And you look right around the corner, and all the buildings are murals, and there's a 1,500-pound Ganesh in the corner, and a life-size marble Christ right there at the driveway, and then a 6,000-pound Buddha and a Shiva in the back. So it's basically about sacred celebration. Area 101 is a spiritual sanctuary and event center for all faiths devoted to personal growth and spiritual enlightenment. So it's a sanctuary. And but a little thing happened in the meantime of me building the sanctuary. We had the chance to do the Emerald Cup, And all of a sudden, Area 101 became the place where the first debates for the sheriffs in the country were taken on, and the DA's debates, all the initial stuff, because Mendocino really spearheaded almost all the development in the whole country of cannabis law. And that really happened. Pebbles Trippett was really the forerunner of that. Julie knows Pebbles. Pebbles is a 70-plus year cannabis activist, fierce warrior woman, just a wonderful lady, and she got herself arrested so she could prove the right to carry cannabis as medicine. Spent a year in jail just to prove that. So Pebbles is the one who spearheaded us doing a lot of that. And the next thing you know, we're off to the races.
She's our senior editor at the magazine.
Of course, she's writing for you.
She's like our conscience.
Who could you get better than Pebbles?
She's guiding us. Yeah. Exactly. Yeah.
Oh, you made some good choices there. I'll tell you what, Julie, you got some good people writing for you. Some really good direction with the magazine.
Thank you. And one of the people that came on and said that they're definitely wanting to be more involved this year is Swami and Nikki, who have been a part of the event from the beginning, and they're wonderful people who really embody and live the idea of consciousness and cannabis and ethical business practices and giving back to their communities. They're beacons of light. And they were talking about how, they remember talking around the time when you guys said, well, why don't we start some kind of cup? Why don't we, as you guys were enjoying the fruits of the harvest and all of the wonderful, variances and flavors and qualities that started. So could you tell our listeners just quickly, how did the Emerald Cup start? It's now 15 years old, and it's the largest outdoor organic festival in the world. And so it started at Area 101, right? Went to the Mateel. To touch on a little bit about that journey as we lead into the Cup now, because I want to definitely touch on some things there.
Well, it's an amazing journey to think of it, because we were just innocent people trying to get by and have a little party and stuff. We never thought we were going to create the Emerald Cup into what it was. I just didn't want to get arrested. I was thinking, no, I'd probably get arrested is what I was going to do, and that was my main thing. That first year, it was really, Nikki and Swami came in a lot more afterwards, but the first year we really did it with my two old friends, Desmond and Lisa Austin, and it was both their birthdays on the December 5th date, so we decided to have the Cup on December 5th and disguise it as their birthday. And they were the original people with me in the Cup doing that. And then the first year, nobody would barely even show up. We had people en masse. First and third place winners didn't even come pick up their prizes because they were afraid. There probably were feds in the place, cops all over. I'm sure there were. But that led us to keep the first and third prizes, which I still got in our case. So that was kind of a fortunate thing for us. It was won by an 86-year-old man, and it was an 86-year-old man that had never grown cannabis before, and his son gave him a purple kush, and he grew it, and he beat all the cannabis farmers in these mountains. But you know what? Traditional farmers are great. If you can grow a great pumpkin, if you can grow great vegetables, you're probably going to be a pretty good cannabis farmer because you love growing vegetables and fruits and things. So it just comes naturally that way. But it was amazing. So the second year, we almost got in trouble with the police. They were going to come shut it down. They got into kind of an argument out in front, but we're standing out there. The cops were like, I don't know what's going on here, but the people driving by, the pot was just coming at him. And he's like, I can arrest every one of these cars leaving. There's cars on the road. And just then Marv announced, and the number 6 was like this skunk. And he's like, and I don't even know what's going on in there. I just want it to end. and he got in his car and ran off. He didn't know what to do. Because we're out in the boonies, so there's not backup. We're an hour from the main town. So he's pretty much on his own up there, and he didn't have a clue. So the next year they brought a guy in, and because I argued with them that they weren't giving me permits. They wouldn't give me a permit to have the event. So we eventually made peace. And the Cup just continued to grow, and it became, just the party to be in the fall. Everybody planned it. Everybody came in. We all came in. We used to do a survivor's breakfast. We'd go all night, and the people that stayed up with us got a free breakfast, and we'd start doing psychedelics at midnight. And everybody on the inside knew it, and we'd go till 7 or 8 in the morning with music, and then we'd have a giant breakfast. And we can't do that in Santa Rosa quite the same yet, although we started moving that into the after-hours party, except that they wouldn't let us go all night. We made the mistake that we didn't get to go all night. So next year, we're going to get a building that will let us go all night, because that was really
okay,
kind of the
You've got
the
my
thing.
number. I want a text. I expect a text from you.
Oh, no, we're going to go. Because this year, for everybody's information, we decided to bring back the late-night after-hours party, and we have our hotel for all of our crew. And so we thought we'd rented the whole hotel, which we thought we did. There was a mistake, but somehow we didn't have 30 rooms. And so when they shut us down at 2 o'clock, we tried to grill it outside at the pools with the sound system. And the people that weren't part of the tribe weren't very happy, so about 3 in the morning they shut us down. But it was amazing to watch a bunch of people out there trying to guerrilla a sound system at a major hotel.
That was amazing. Okay, I was there, and I was walking around, and 10 years, however, 6 years earlier, that hotel was so straight-laced. I remember how different it was. And I felt like I was on acid, even though I wasn't, because I was looking around. I'm like, is this for real? There are people. There's clouds of smoke billowing. The hotel staff is friendly. They're helping everyone. There was no issue with it. It just felt like little Amsterdam. I'm like, what did they do? How did Tim get them to be cool with this?
Well, what happened was we went there for 5 straight years and kept paying them well and taking all the rooms and having no issues. And so they wanted to figure out how to get into kind of the cannabis scene, and we told them, let us take over your place and we'll show you. Now, I'm not sure if 400 people pretty high at 2 in the morning running around the hotel was exactly what they had in mind. I heard from the manager, Tim, that he wasn't too pleased about all of it, but they did come in and really enjoy what we do, because we're a clean, well-run organization. We're not, doing anything but, pay our tips well and just take care of our business. And so, there were some things where he came in and people had, in the tables, they brought pot in there, and they had cannabis, and the smell was so strong. And I know he came running from his office and looked like he thought people were smoking. And then he looked at our table and realized it was us and went, "Oh my God, I got to go." But it was good. In fact, we're gonna keep working with them. We're gonna get the rest of those rooms next year so we can go all night.
Well, I definitely want to be there next year. I didn't stay there at the hotel this year. That is the best hotel.
Oh.
I loved their vibe. I was really impressed. So
I promise we'll get you a room next year.
Bravo.
That was a disaster. We have, the rooms are always something because the crews end up getting so huge they take over our rooms, and they just keeps. Next year I'm just going to keep the rooms for us, and the crews are going somewhere else.
Well, no,
so
it's insane.
you got to promise. You have access to a room next year.
The show was incredible this year, Tim. I was just so impressed, and I know I want to touch on something that is so close to your heart. But, when you come to the show, just getting back to the story with John, when he had spoken to you so long ago and said, man, let's, move to Matilde, move to Sonoma County Fairgrounds, it was because, he had been to Spannabis. I've gone to Spannabis 9 years, and he said, Tim, you can one day be like Spannabis. You can be the Spannabis of North America and really the world. And really, Tim, walking around this year and last year, really, you have done it. You and Taylor have done it. It is of the caliber of Spannabis. And furthermore, it's devoted to organics and sustainability, which is unmatched anywhere in the world. And it was just so impressive. And this year you gave, a special award. It was the first year to give the Willie Nelson Award. And so I wanted to give you a chance to touch on that and the ethos of that award and how that felt.
We've done the Lifetime Achievement Award now. I don't, embarrassed to say, I don't know exactly how many years. I think it's 8 now or 9. But we have Pebbles, Jack Herrera, Dennis, everybody's in. But I've always wanted Willie. Because, I'm 62. I'm older than most people, obviously, at this point in my life. I go back and I remember Willie and what a heroic figure he was and how he refused to stand down no matter what it was. And I thought, well, who's really been representing our industry and fighting for it openly and publicly? You got all these people smoking cannabis all over, but do they come out and say it or speak up for us? None of them do. But Willie does. And so we tried for 3 years in a row to get Willie, and he kept turning us down because his tour ends beginning of December, and he goes home to Hawaii, so he doesn't have a crew here. So to come back and do the cup and play, it would have been, a one-off and a very expensive endeavor, and then he didn't want to come back for the Lifetime Achievement Award because of the same reason. Well, this year, Willie's getting older, And he decided that it was time, and he wanted to do a couple extra shows, and he came over, and he came in and accepted the award. And what we're really proud about is that Willie has fought for small farmers, traditional farmers, for organic and cannabis. He knows the difference. And his agent, his manager, his wife, all of them vetted us out and decided they would allow us to change the name of the award from the Lifetime Achievement Award to the Willie Nelson Award, with him accepting the first year. And so that was even more of an honor. I was so humbled by that act. It's really amazing. I haven't been really not intimidated, but in awe of anybody. And seeing Willie there, I just really brought up a lot of that. So it was really a special moment for me, for the audience. I know the audience was crowded. It was packed. They wanted to give Willie the respect, and he got it. And boy, we'll live with that one forever. We've had Dennis's wedding on our stage. We've had Willie Nelson grace our stage. I mean, it's an amazing when you look at it, and the people have come through and blessed us.
Oh, it's true. And your eyes were sparkling. You had so much joy, and it's true. I mean, this kind of segues into the next question, I wanted to ask you, is that when it gets back to farmers, it gets back to the soil, it gets back to the water, it gets back to our earth. And that's really what I've always loved about your focus, is that it transcends cannabis. Cannabis is intimately woven into it, but ultimately it's about living as a steward of the planet versus a user and abuser. And, this year I was so impressed with the Jesse Dodd from BioVortex. You allowed him to, come in and really take the helm to spearhead the regenerative farm movement for the cup, and bravo, Jesse is amazing, as are the people that he highlighted. And I just wanted to touch on, the cultivation of the healthy living soil is the cornerstone of what it is that we are focused on as a community, and what, the Emerald Cup, what Skunk Magazine, what the Regenerative Farm Group, and all the different groups like Dragonfly Earth Medicine and Casey O'Neill over at Happy Day Farms, Casey and Amber. So I would love to have you touch on that and share that focus from your own heart and mind of why that is so important to you and the Emerald Cup.
Well, many cannabis farmers back in the day, they were primarily male because it was a pretty legal, question for women to be involved. But a lot of them weren't really farmers like me. We came up, we were outlaws. We were going to do it no matter what because we wanted our medicine. I couldn't get the Thai and the Mexican and the hash loads anymore, so I was going to go grow it or find it. And so we went up and started doing these indoors before you could even do it outdoors because they'd come arrest you. And so most of it was indoors, and it was bagged soils. It was going quick. We didn't know what we were doing. It was bottled fertilizers. We weren't doing anything, most of us consciously wrong. It's just that we didn't know any better. There wasn't anybody to really teach us the word regenerative farming, all this stuff, and it hadn't really come up. People weren't really pushing it. And as we've, clearly ruined the topsoil of our country, most of the topsoil of most countries, and we've made it so in this country you've got to have chemical fertilizers to even grow anything. That's not a sustainable way. I mean, we have to learn how to sustain our land and our world, because you can't just keep mining it. You can't keep getting bat guanos from caves thousands of miles away and put them in ships, and you can't go make chemicals from oils and stuff and fertilizers, and you can't do this stuff. It doesn't work. It's proven that it doesn't work, and not only for the earth but for our children and for ourselves. It toxifies us, and we need to really be that guide. And one of the things that was very sobering for us in the Emerald Cup was a couple of years ago when we started testing beyond the THC and the cannabinoids, we got into pesticides, and we found that between half and 75% of the people were not doing best practices with farming, and that made me realize that a lot of cannabis that I'd middled and sold over the years wasn't clean, and that's not acceptable. And so we called people out on that. It was a pretty big event. We were going to actually post the results, and companies begged us not to because they didn't want to be ruined, and we decided since the first year that was fair. But it was a heads up for everybody. Now it's great because fast forward 2 years later, and you've dropped that from 60, 70% down to less than 10. So people got the word, amazing. They cleaned up, and they got it, but they had to be educated. And so what was that? We needed people to come in like Casey O'Neill, like Jesse Dodd, like Dan Mars, like Josh and Sandra, you got like the Dragonfly, Josh and Kelly, people that really understand rainwater catchment, how to go back and use the materials on the land, how to put, compost together, how to do these things and how to regenerate things and save things. I'm an old school guy. I like to get a shovel and beat the earth to death, till it to death. It's been really hard, this no-till thing, where you don't till it and you just support it on top. It feels like I'm doing something wrong or I'm cheating, or it's not even like, this isn't the way you do it. You go out there and just pound it. You dig it till there's nothing left. And, it's funny. Here I am a Neanderthal. I'm looking at it now and going, well, do you really think there were any worms or microorganisms or anything living in that by the time you got done? No, you pretty much canned them all. But hey, we just go in there and put some, fertilizers, some bottles in there and pour some stuff on there and it all grew. But now that's not happening, and so you got this Regenerative Farm Award. It actually started out of the Portland Cultivation Classic. I should give props to Jeremy Plume and Jesse, because they started it up there. And I went up there with Phoebe and saw what they were doing and went, oh, we need this. This is what we need. And so I went to Jesse and Jeremy. I said, we need this down here. I want you to come down here, and I want you to do it here, and we'll pay for it. Well, whatever it is, we'll get it done. And that first year we started, and it was a nice little start, but I'll tell you what, we have picked it up, and Jesse and Dan, Jesse. Jesse's just a special person. He's a geneticist. He just is a brilliant researcher. He knows his stuff, and so it makes me look good. All I got to do is wind up and turn Jesse loose, and I look great. And so that's what we do. We get Dan and Jesse in there, and it's been a wonderful thing. So we bring panels. We got Chris Collum coming in. We have a whole group with the Malibu Compost people, and we've got Josh and Kelly from Dragonfly Earth Medicine. So we really bring in that whole clan of people to really educate people, and people are really learning, and they're taking it to heart. And the other thing people realize is you get better terpenes, you get a better cannabinoid profile, you get a better high and more healing medicine when you're working with the earth and in unison and harmony.
Can't argue with you there.
That's the whole thing. It's better business practices and showing people that actually this is going to be good for their pocketbook as well as the earth, and they can sleep well at night knowing that they're protecting not just for themselves but for 7 generations. And so, Dragonfly Earth Medicine, Josh and Kelly are writing for the magazine now. Every issue, Jesse Dodd is going to come in, and Casey O'Neill. So I've really taken heed. I mean, I didn't know if you know this, but long before I got into the cannabis industry, I was into permaculture and studying those things and studying organics and organic farming, and ran an organic farm CSA. So for me, it's just been incredible to see this journey of bringing what's most important, what's really on the leading edge of really what I believe that the plant has been guiding us to do. I just came up with this idea, Tim. I know you're going to love it because you're so into all plant medicines, really. But that the earth really has been propagating consciousness through all of these plants, so we could transform styles of business and styles of how we're organizing within society. So I'm really excited to have the regenerative voices as a weekly part online and as a regular part in print, of just constantly sharing what it's like to become, a steward of the planet again versus a user and a taker, and what it's like to practice husbandry, as you said. That if you're a farmer and you're observing the natural world and you're watching the cycles and watching how everything relates and how it's speaking to each other, that you can then come in and work together. It's that ancient alchemy, really, that we're practicing, and then we really have heaven on earth, don't we?
Yeah, we do, and we're going to teach traditional farmers because we're being held at such levels. I mean, our testing regulations are like by the millionth of a milligram, and you're talking about where they can put pounds on a vineyard or traditional farming. And so people are looking at that and just going, "Oh, wait, how is this? And what's going on?" And so we're calling into practices all of agriculture and how it's done, and we need to transform that. And the wonderful thing and the hope is that it works really quickly. If you just get out of the way and give the earth a chance to heal and start giving back, she responds. I mean, it's an interactive system there, and the insects and the microbes, everything will just come up, and so we can regenerate and heal the planet, everything, the oceans and all this very quickly if we just stop doing the damage, and that's what we've got to do. And people are waking up. We're seeing a renaissance. It's an incredible thing to see. So I mean, the organic nature of people looking for food and everything they put in their bodies and water, and people are getting it. So I'm really proud of that. I'm really happy with what you've done there, Julie. I mean, you really made some smart moves, because you look at some other magazines, which I won't name. There's a lot of cannabis magazines out there, and back in the day, there was really only Skunk and High Times. For the most part, there were a couple others, but you were it. And now there's like 20 of them that are all flourishing, but are they going to flourish for long? Because what is their content? What is their story? And you've really taken a great direction with it, bringing in Josh and Kelly. You get Jesse in there, get Nikki and Swami. You got the whole triangle. You got the tribe. You got the regenerative farmers. You got everything. And that's what people want to learn. And so they'll come and get your magazine because there's content, there's stories, there's experience there. So I think the future looks really good for you guys, and I'm really happy and grateful for you. All
right. I've got to jump in here. We got to go for break.
Okay.
Okay. When we go into break, Tim, what we usually do, what I try to do is match up some music to our guests. And tonight, instead of getting music, what I did is I found some audio of somebody who's attending the Emerald Cup, and they're interviewing and talking to people while they're going around. Great. So that's the audio that I'm going to play. So people who haven't been able to attend the Emerald Cup will be able to hear a little bit of, what other people think of it. All righty. Awesome. All right. So we're going to hear, this is somebody by the name of Dirty Heads. That was the name on the audio, Dirty Heads. I haven't got a clue who it is. All right. And it's their look back on the sights and sounds of the 2016 Emerald Cup. And then when we get back, Julie and I will continue our conversation with our guest, Tim Blake. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
Hey, this is Cheech. And this is Chong. And you're listening to Lifestyle Radio. What is it? Lifestyle Radio. Say it one more time. 420 Radio? Ooh.
Please hang up and try again.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Well, here we are live in somewhere in Santa Rosa at the Academy Awards of Marijuana.
Hey,
we love it.
Meeting all the people, meeting all the different people, all the connections, different types of flowers.
The unity of the community.
World Cup has always been an event that encouraged organic, pesticide-free, sun-grown product, and it was driven by the contest. So this year we're actually releasing our own products as well in the name of that.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Canadays, your friendly neighborhood Campbellford head shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more. We've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Let us help you grow your 4 with weekly Tuesday night gardening sessions for beginners. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. Canadays, more than just a head shop. 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Are you looking for cannabis news, education, and people's opinions? Are you looking to learn what Canadian and international cannabis advocates are doing, not only now, but what got them to this point in their lives, and what does the future hold for them? Do you want to learn how patients are using cannabis as their daily medication, or learn how their cannabis use helps them with their medical condition? If you answered yes to any of these questions, then I'm going to suggest to you to tune in to Lifestyle Radio. Catch their live weekly shows and have your questions and concerns answered and find the experience you're looking for. Monday, catch your weekly news broadcast with the Reefer Reporters. Then on Wednesday, get several hours worth of cannabis public education. We get things started with Cannabis and Coffee with Marijuana. Finish up your evening with the award-winning Pace Radio Show with Al Graham, and no week would be complete without tuning into Friday night's program, the 420 Radio Show featuring Al Rapp and the 420 Radio crew, Mary Jane Baker and Marcel Gagnac. Cannabis is a lifestyle, and you can catch all your cannabis lifestyle information right here at 420radio.ca. An apple a day won't keep this doctor away, but a gram of cannabis may keep you away from the doctor. Find out how by tuning into The Higher Estate with Dr. Ira Price, Wednesdays at 3 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, only here at 420radio.ca. Tune in to DJ Passion from the land of Ganja, the island of Jamaica, when he comes to you live every Saturday night at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on 420radio.ca.
We're here at the Emerald Cup celebrating alternative cannabis culture, and what better way to do that than to blow glass.
You like hitting the vape pens, or you like the flower? What's your
flower. I like spliffs. I really like rolling spliffs. I like the ritual of it.
When I'm moshing, my friends are all high, yeah, I'm nice and I got them that way. We bowls on parade, my bowls full of weed, man. How you been a pterodactyl? You could call me caveman.
Oh, Dirty Heads are great. I love those guys.
Hello and welcome back. We are the Pace Radio Show, and we are live here at 420radio.ca. Today in the program, we're joined by our guest, Tim Blake of the Emerald Cup, plus our new joint host, Skunk Magazine co-owner, Julie Chiarello. How'd I do, Julie? I went from a B plus to a B, didn't I?
No. We're going to keep trying.
Chiarello. I got to put the accent on there. The accent. Okay, Julie and Tim, before the break, we were talking about so many different things, and I'm just going to hand the reins back over to you, Julie, and let you keep going at it.
Great. Yeah, I wanted to touch on, before we leave the Emerald Cup, because I do want to ask some really key questions about legalization and kind of the journey, because you have such great insight, especially for any listeners from Canada. But before we go there, I wanted to talk about, the future and give you a chance, Tim, to talk about, some of your new partnerships and what's coming for the Emerald Cup, and because it's just been incredible this last few years of what you've done and how I love to see you and Taylor supported by a stellar team, and really just a lot more support on the ground for really infrastructure and the cup, with the floors being laid down, and because for those listening in, inclement weather, because it's December in Cali, can hit, and there could be rain, and this year we had rain, but they were ready for it with tents and beautiful flooring and so many different areas to congregate. So can you talk a little bit about your partners and what's coming for the Emerald Cup before we leave that subject?
Sure. I was so fortunate to find a couple people that were the best people I could have ever hoped for. Jim Louie walked into my life. He had been working with Swami and Nikki. Jim Louie is he heads the cannabis department for Corn Capshaw in Red Light Management. Red Light Management is the group that discovered Dave Matthews. Corn Capshaw owns that wholly. He discovered Dave Matthews. He built that into the largest music talent agency. Got offices in Nashville, Charlottesville, L.A., New York. He's got Luke Bryant, Country Western Stars. He's got Fish on there. And so I didn't know who these guys were. I had no idea who Red Light Management was. So Jim walks into my life. High Times was courting me at the time. And I'm the first one to admit that you go from Area 101 with, a couple hundred people. We peaked at like 1,500. You go to Santa Rosa, you got 8,000 people. All of a sudden you're dealing with 25,000 people for the weekend, and you got security issues, in and outs issues. You got all kinds of stuff that you have to know how to run a city for a weekend. Well, it was obvious to me that it was like that was getting beyond my scope. And the size, it was just like, okay, we need to find the right people to help us. And I hadn't brought him in. Jim walked in and said, we've been looking at a couple hundred companies to partner with, and we'd really like to work with you. And I was like, I don't know who you guys are. And he said, well, you should check us out. So we spent a little time talking, and we decided to get in business with Corn and Red Light, and it was the best decision I ever made. High Times came in and offered me some really good money, and even when we were doing the deal, wanted to still negotiate with us. And I respect Matt, but I wouldn't touch it because I had the opportunity to work Corn. He also owns Star Hill Presents, which owns parts of Outside Lands, Bonnaroo, Lollapalooza, South by Southwest, some of the biggest shows. They are the biggest shows in this country. He puts on Lollapalooza. Yeah. Or he did. So Corn had the whole package. So Jim comes in, and Jim himself, I mean, my gosh, this guy worked with Irving Azoff for 5 years. He was at CAA, with the biggest talent agency in the world. He created the Horde Festival. I mean, they brought in a world-class team that could actually put a Lollapalooza-type road show together. And, my production manager just developed the Beastie Boys book tour. He did the Smashing Pumpkins tour. He did the Bon Jovi tour. That's what he's done in the last 8 months. So these guys came in, and I basically got out of the way. I still guide it. I do a lot of work. We deal with the contest, the speakers, and all the rest of that. But we had $450,000 in flooring. We had, a $600,000 production staff. The first year I was in Santa Rosa, we spent $440,000 on the budget. This year we spent $4 million. And when you have that many moving parts, that's a huge, huge thing, an endeavor. So I produced the show with Jim. Red Light's come in where they built a world-class team so we can take the show around the country and the world. That's what we're intending on doing. We only did one show this year because we wanted to get all of our compliance issues and everything done right and really prove to everybody that we were the ones that should do this, and we did that. So I'm very, very excited about that. Now we've had the opportunity to have them come in on the product side, but, we'll jump into that. I have a bunch of companies that I work on the product side. I have vertically integrated. I've got 4 permitted farms. I realized genetics and terpene profiles are going to be very important, so we developed a lot of really incredible genetic strains. And we have a nursery, we have a production facility, we have a manufacturing site, and we just went to town and opened up all these companies. And likewise with that was really a big endeavor to start 10 or 12 companies and bootstrap that whole thing. And Corn didn't want to come in at first into all the bricks and mortar side of cannabis because he's a multi-billionaire and he didn't want to risk the money. But he did step over he was the first in the country in the industry to step over into the music business. And he's really been looked at as a pioneer for that. And now he's stepping over into the bricks and mortar side and becoming my partner in all the product companies. So I'm going to have him, and I have another partner who's coming in who's a Canadian named Joey Hussein. The Hussein family is a well-respected family, primarily on the West Coast over there in Vancouver. They developed Whistler. They have multiple real estate going on all over Canada. Joey has about 15 cannabis companies. He's a great guy. The family is great. It's all privately owned. Corn is privately owned. I'm privately owned, and so is Joey. We all like that because then we're not dealing with the pressure of a publicly traded company where you've got to worry about them not wanting you to sell organic chips because you don't make as much money. So I got the best partners in the world.
Exactly.
They're both in the cup. They're both in the product company. They're about to put $4 million up so we can build these facilities. And we're going to basically take the very best of who we are, Kevin Jodry, you, Josh and Kelly, all of them, Casey, and we're looking at a Lollapalooza Cannabis Roadshow that can go around the country and the world teaching all these, best practices and all the medicinal, the legal, science and all that, and basically turn it into like a Lollapalooza on the road. And at the same time bring our product companies along for the ride, because every show is going to end up incorporating cannabis into it. It's very clear. Live Nation, AEG, all of them are looking at it, trying to figure out how they're going to make money off cannabis. And so within 2 years, you're going to see that coming in. And look at it already, where we had no shows going on. Julie, look, you just came back from Maui. Next month is the Hawaii Expo. Mike Tyson just bought a ranch in L.A. or outside of L.A. to go put a big event center, cannabis event center. I mean, it's coming. The people in Washington have that show.
Yeah.
We're talking about Vancouver and Toronto.
Mike Gabbard, Tulsi Gabbard, Mike Gabbard, and that Senator Mike Gabbard.
Yeah.
You know, we've got, you know, you're exactly right. This is going mainstream in a way that's going to be infused more into day-to-day life, and so I'm just so pleased of what's taken place with you, and the power and the energy that's coming behind the ethos of organics and sustainability. I mean, I'm thrilled, absolutely thrilled. You know?
Well, you know, we're looking at likely we've been talking about actually going to Canada, either Vancouver or Toronto. We have partners in Toronto that we could work with.
Come to Toronto. Come to Toronto.
Well, you know what? It's interesting. There's a gentleman from Toronto who I respect very much. He's an architect. He's been out of Toronto, Lauren Gertner, and he has been called the godfather of cannabis in Canada. At one point, I think he had half the permits in Canada. He was one of the main founders of Tokyo Smoke and Haiku. And Lauren was talking about us going to Toronto about 4 or 5 years ago. And we weren't ready for that because it wasn't legal, and, you know, Canada wasn't there yet. But you guys are there now, and his good friend and partner in companies is Joey Hussein. He was the one who told us to go talk to Joey. So Joey has the contacts on the Vancouver side. Lauren has some contacts on Toronto, and we'd love to get involved with them. We haven't had that conversation with Lauren, you know, recently. John did. But, yeah, somehow we're going to go in there, and we're going to work with our Canadian partners to really put on an amazing event.
Nice.
Well, we definitely talked before that because I got to give you the inside skinny on the landscape up here, and this actually goes really well into a question that you know, I really want to get into with you, and it has to do with kind of the shadow and light that is a part of legalization. And you know, I've been contemplating this a lot, you know, and this idea that, you know, there's always death and birth involved with any creation. Right, it's part of universal law, and legalization is no different of cannabis. You know, we've dealt with 100+ years of prohibition, 120 years of prohibition. It's still in many places around the globe. We're dealing with legalization now, and one of the things that you may not even know, Tim, because you're so busy on the ground with your event, is that, you know, what's told to the public about what legalization is, for instance, in Canada, is very different than what legalization is actually like for Canadians. And that goes for, you know, patients, it goes for small and mid-sized business owners, it goes, you know, for, you know, craft makers, craft companies, dispensary companies. And, you know, what's happening up here in Canada is that, you know, there's a lot of kind of cultural genocide happening because of the way that the Canadian government decided to roll it out. They propped up a licensed producer system, which in order to participate as a licensed producer, to even come to the table, you need millions upon millions of dollars to even, you know, decide. Now, there are different styles of licenses that will definitely, it looks like, will be emerging. I know there's some movement in Ontario in terms of different styles of licenses being available. But we know that things will change over time. But what a lot of people don't understand is that many small and mid-sized businesses are completely illegal that used to operate kind of in a gray area. In fact, today, Cannabis Culture just closed several of their stores down. You know, dispensaries continue to be criminalized, arrested, and closed all across Canada, while Canadians really are, you know, having to go either through, you know, the licensed producer mail order system, and, you know, in some regions they're getting better served than others. You know, there's obviously better and more you know, good practices licensed producers, and then there's others that are not doing so well. So it's a really, you know, it's kind of a tumultuous, treacherous for some, great for others atmosphere that is kind of like a .com feeling where there's lots of shell games coming in. And so I wanted to kind of, because you're here and you're so much a part of California, and I'm born and raised Californian, is that I often find when I'm going around Canada is that Canadians don't really know what's happening. They think, hey, everything's legal in California and everybody's smoking up and it's great and all these businesses are thriving and dispensaries are thriving and you can get it anywhere. And so then I have to tell them and take them through and help them to understand a little bit about the shadow and the light of this experience. And so I wanted to kind of, have you have a chance to share, Tim, what your thoughts are and help others that are listening in that are not down here on the ground with us to understand what it's like.
Well, I've been saying there's an extinction event going on. I've heard some of that in Canada. I have heard that here in California. When you live in a capitalist society, and you got all these big players, whether it's tobacco, whether it's big pharma, whether it's, just money people, and they're all standing on the sidelines. Once it becomes legal and they can come in, they have resources that small people, small farmers and product makers don't have. So we're already at such a disadvantage to people that are so well-financed. And, of course, those people have connections to lobbyists and their local politicians and all the people that we haven't because we've been hiding out in the mountains growing cannabis. So we're starting off so far behind them already. And then you put in all the laws. I mean, Fish and Game and everybody in California here, rightfully, a lot of this environmental stuff, it needs to all be cleaned up. But you're coming in and watching building departments come in and make people, fix up every building to code. A lot of people did Class K, which is basically home building. And, it's prohibitive. People put ponds in, different things, and all of a sudden the average cannabis farmer's got to put up $75,000 to $200,000 to be able to hold their permits. And then they've got to put in all the security and fencing and all this to do it all, and they're supposed to pay for all this and get it all done before they go on, and then pay 40% tax for their product. And it's crazy. Basically, they've on the farmers. There's an extinction event. They went to the small product makers and told them that they couldn't make their products at home anymore. They had to work through a manufacturing plant. I went and lobbied the BCC and said, look, I'm a manufacturer. I don't want these people to have to come to me. They should be able to make it at their home like they've done for the last 20 years. You're going to wipe them all out if they got to come to me. All of a sudden, I'm going to cut out 30% of their profit. They're small people. They can't afford it. And that's what's happening. And so you're really seeing the small product makers. You're seeing the small cultivators. It's happening across California, this incredible extinction event. And there's nothing you can do about that. I've told people they were going to give us 5 years in California and keep all large agriculture out, nothing over an acre. And within 1 month of legalization of our Prop 64, in January they decided that because of sentiment from people that they respected, they were opening it all up. Now you've got 300-acre hemp farms in the San Joaquin Valley. And this craziness that's going on that up here in Mendocino, you got 10,000 square feet. We're supposed to compete with 40 acres that Steve DeAngelo's got at Harborside, or the 30 acres that Absolute's got, or whatever else. How can you do that? You can't, and you can't at a very niche. I've told people all along, if you grow a very fine flower or make a really incredible product and work really hard, you will find a niche for your product. That's the 10%. But that's the top 10% of what is entered in the Cannabis Cup. The Emerald Cup. That's the other 90% is going to have a hard time making it. And when you try to start doing contract grows and growing for $400 a pound, how can you make the money? Now, in Canada, I've heard, they won't let you do any advertising. Obviously, you can't even advertise. You can't do anything up there. And so they tie your hands up, and how are you supposed to get your products out there? And it's the same thing. They're making it so unless you have huge amounts of money, you can't get in. In Pennsylvania, we were going to go apply for a permit there. They said if you had less than $2.5 million, don't even bother. Okay, well, how many small farmers or how many small product makers are going to get one of those permits? And so it's crazy, but I wouldn't turn back 64. People have asked me, did you regret 64 passing the legalization of California? Because it's very controversial. And I said no, because you're no longer seeing anybody get busted on the roads. There's access for people, for patients. My 93-year-old uncle, who's a priest for 50 years, is now taking cannabis because it's legal. I've got a brother-in-law, captain of Watsonville PD, former captain. He can take cannabis because it's legal. You got all these people coming in now, and it's just a wonderful part of it. So it's kind of strange. I compare it to, like, as we look at the old schoolers that really built this industry, that put all the time in, that aren't social media savvy, that don't have all that money, that don't really want to come out of the woods, they're an extinction event, while this new universe is exploding into billions of galaxies right in front of our very eyes. And so the whole world is taking on cannabis, while the people that basically spearheaded that effort, and most of them spent time in jail or PTSD, traumatized, rip-offs, whatever, most of those aren't going to see the promised land. They're never going to get there. Not in Canada, not in Pennsylvania, and not in California.
It's true.
It's crazy.
And that's why I'm calling it a cultural genocide, just like you said, an extinction event. And it is. I mean, we had The Highway, which is a free lifestyle magazine, which we show, which started in California and Canada. And right at the same time, craft was put into a death choke. And they both went different ways, but it was done with the same result, which is many great craft brands are now no longer alive in Canada at this time. It's weird, and there's just these empty spaces that companies used to fill, and then many dispensaries that were wonderful, great kind of, banes of the community that were there for 10 years, 15 years. I mean, it's been shocking to see BC, which has always been kind of the epicenter, BC Bud, man, and cannabis culture, and the Emerys and all the activism there, Dana Larson and all the great activists over there. And now the city is turning its back, and really, Weeds as well is facing certain doom. They just laid off 50, cannabis culture just laid off 50 people today. And so, yeah, it is this kind of bittersweet. And I just thought of Winston Churchill, and he said, when going through hell, keep going. It's not to minimize the fact. That's what's so crazy. I guess with growth, there's death. The landscape is filled with death, and at the same time filled with incredible promise.
Yeah, but it's like, Winston Churchill is a good example. It's kind of like you're watching people go down left and right, but if you don't keep going, you're going to get it too, and you just have to go as fast as you can. So I've got cousins and family members coming to me, and they're going under. The property values are collapsing in the Emerald Triangle, on the northern part anyway, away from traditional, sectors, and they're coming and they're all collapsing, and I don't know what I can do. I'm sitting there, trying to scale up and compete myself, even with the Emerald Cup. I mean, look at all these shows coming in. Look at all the competition. Dougie with Chalice coming in and dropping $4 million. All of a sudden, he's putting $1 million in talent, and people are going, "Well, you're kind of being cheap on talent." And I'm going, "Jesus Christ, I spent $500,000." And it's like we're competing with the Joneses, and it becomes something where it is the capitalist society we live in. I do think that our government and our governments in Canada, across this country and California specifically, they could have done a much better job. And I've tried to not be very critical of the BCC, Lori Ajax, or all the California, control and regulation people, because we work with them and we're trying to fix all this. But I could really go to town on them, and I could go to town on the people in Canada and everywhere else, because on one side, hey, I'm an old school outlaw. I have a ton of my people have been up here doing this for 40 years, and to watch them suffer like they are when they should have been protected. In fact, they should be subsidized. You're looking at all these corn farmers and everybody across this country. Well, you should be subsidizing these aging, going extinct cannabis farmers. And there's never going to be any of that for them. And they don't have health plans, and they don't have insurance policies, and they've been up here doing it illegally all these years, and they had all their money and value in their properties, which have gone down 30 to 40%. And it is horrific on that side. And it is so bittersweet. And on the other side is we're going to watch all these permits blow up in the next year, and we're going to finish off this country, and we're going to legalize. They're going to just legalize it, just like they've done the hemp. And 110 clinical trials in Israel. Look what Canada's doing. The Colombians, the Mexicans are now going to take it. I mean, Thailand's going. I mean, it's off to the races. So what they really should do is just take about $40 billion and give each one of these cannabis farmers $1 million if they can prove they were doing it for the last 30 years.
Be nice. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Or something. Same in Canada. If you can prove you were doing it for 20 years or 30 years, hey, you got a pension.
Yeah, and like you were saying, there are a lot of craft people here in Canada that have fallen off the wayside. They haven't been able to access, like they need, it's big money to even join in as a craft licensed person.
Oh, no, they can't. Because there's only so much money. There's only so many players. When you get, it's like brands. We're talking, people come to me and want to be a brand. And there's so many, in the music industry, there's so many secondary acts that want to be a brand. And I look at them, because they come to Red Light all the time. And I'm like, do you realize who you're already competing with? You got Willie, 3 Marley brands, Melissa Etheridge, Oprah Winfrey. Just go down the list. Okay, so if you're not one of those people, don't be putting a brand together, because you're not going to be able to compete. Well, how can these small farmers compete, against brands like that, or small product makers? So most of them are having to merge their it's a assimilation process where just people are just merging left and right, distribution companies, manufacturing, product companies, but within that you've got people like, Flo Kana, and you got Humboldt Seeds, you got a lot of people that are up there really trying to help the industry do the right things and push it forward. So
that's good.
Yeah, I mean, that's what we've decided, is that we, that 5 years ago I stopped using that term green rush, which is what we're talking about, greed rush, I call it, and started using the term green renaissance. And it was because, Tim, I knew that where skunk was going to go and where it needed to go, given that we have the background of organics and sustainability for 13 years at the time, or 12 years at the time. And I just said, let's take it further and let's go right out to the leading edge, right where all of these stewards, these rainbow warriors, I call them, which I'll touch on later. But the idea was that, not everybody is going to do this with us, but there are millions upon millions of us around the planet that do want to see a sustainable change in business, and will create more ethical businesses, we see evidence of it, as you mentioned, a couple of companies like Humboldt Seed Company, who featured Nat in the last issue, and others that are infusing consciousness within their capitalist system. Where, like Buckminster Fuller, I'm a big fan that you don't fight the existing system, you infuse the existing system with magic so that the existing system becomes obsolete and the new one stands in its place. And that's really what we're doing with events like the Emerald Cup, with Skunk. I'm happy we're still standing. That's what we're going to be devoted to, is, yes, do great business, but do great business that also, considers your community. It considers the people around you. It adds to the community. It creates healing through commerce. And so this became the focus. And then that's that social activism piece, that through doing good business, we can also be social activists. And I know that that's your desire, because it's always been your desire to merge the worlds of spirituality, cannabis, organic food, holistic lifestyle. This is your dream and vision. So, and that's what we want to do.
Yeah, well, you know what? There's a lot of good things going on. The medicinal side of cannabis. Like I said, there's 110 clinical trials going on in Israel. I'm working with a company, Treatwell, they're actually Rosette now. They were formerly Treatwell. They were the ones that had the CEO yell at that little kid in San Francisco. And they forced them to take everything off the market. But then everybody, they had 300 stores, and only 300 actually did, because their tinctures are so good. So they're called Rosette. It's Harry Rose. He's the finest medicinal guy in the world. It's all organic farming. It's all his own genetics. It's his own extraction techniques. And he's extracting like CBD, A and THCA, and these different cannabinoids, and merging them together, and he's curing autism, pushing back every illness. And so we're going to see that cannabis is going to really heal almost every illness that there is. And so people are going to get access to that, and that's really exciting. I mean, it's really exciting. The fact that we're cleaning up all the farms is exciting. The fact that people don't have to worry anymore, and they can pay their taxes, and they can get insurance on their homes, and they can hire people, and they can hold their heads up, and the people coming in going from 7% to where my uncle, my family, everybody can feel comfortable to come in and participate. I mean, it's a wonderful. There's a lot of beautiful stuff that's coming into this. Just that one part, we've got that extinction event that we're going to go through for the next. We've been going through it, and probably another year's worth, and then we'll move on into this new world. And the people left standing are going to do really well. And I'm really happy for those. You know, look at Patrick King, you look at Kevin Jodrey up there. You know the people up and down the road. You can see them, but there's not that many. There's going to be 20 of those people, not 300, and it's going to be a different world we live in. But I'm really excited about it. I really love, like you said, the spirituality and the psychedelics coming in. They're going to approve FDA for Federal Drug Administration for depression with mushrooms and the research, and Oregon's talking about just legalizing them. And Michael Pollan just bought that book, You Can Change Your Mind, or How to Change Your Mind, and it's just so incredible how quickly that's coming in too. They in the 70s, in the 70s what was happening was
go faster.
No, what was happening was in the 70s we had cannabis coming in, the psychedelic world coming in with the peace and love hippie thing, and it was a beautiful thing. And what did the New World Order do? They went, okay, we got to stop this. So how do we stop this? We just get minimum mandatory so people go in jail for 10 years for cannabis. We wipe out everybody by bringing cheap cocaine and speed in here and cheap pharmaceutical drugs and get them off all this pot and all these psychedelics. And that's what they did. And they basically toxified us for 30 years, but cannabis people wouldn't stand down. It was like a bush that they kept pruning back, but that root just got bigger. When you talk about faster and faster, that's because that root got bigger and bigger. Same with the psychedelics. They couldn't hold it down. It was going to push its way to the surface. And so now cannabis has made its way, and it's blossoming, and psychedelics and the use of them in a medicinal way are going to come right behind that. And then we can tie this spirituality in where people can learn how to be their own gurus and not have to depend upon a church or a priest or somebody else, but can really find that within themselves, because that's what Christ was saying. It's in within you. You don't have to go to somebody else and ask for it. You already got it. And so it's really about that, so people can become empowered and they can become really, inspiring, what humans should be, the very best of what humanity should be.
I've got to jump in here.
Yeah.
All right. You guys are talking about business. I got to take care of business, too. I've got to go for a commercial break.
Okay. We'll come back to that thought. I'll
that's right. Come back to this for sure. All right. And we're going to hear some more of the Dirty Heads. Now, you mentioned the Dirty Heads is a band?
Dirty Heads is a band. They headlined the Cup a couple of years ago. I love those guys. And what I like is the bands that participate. They come and get high with us. They walk the crowd. They mingle. They're real people. Lucas Nelson was like that. Dirty Heads are great.
Great. Good. Super. Okay. Well, we're going to hear some more of their tour around and the sights and sounds of the Annual Cup back in 2016. And then after that, you and I will continue our conversation with our guest, Tim Blake. You're listening to the Pace Radio Show. We are live here at 420radio.ca.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not? Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website. Sounds like a cool website. Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it. You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
Everyone in the place, how you feeling? It's great for us to come and see just how big and vast and strong the culture for medicinal marijuana and cannabis is in somewhere like California.
It's definitely expanding, which is great to see, because I like that the consciousness about cannabis and also the music involved with it is like getting bigger, and I think that's important.
From the north, marijuana is the healing of the nation. Are we using it? Are we not abusing it?
Hi, this is Al Graham of the Pace Radio Show. Are you keeping pace, as in keeping people advocating cannabis education? If you're not, and you're a cannabis consumer, then why not? Others are working hard every day to help educate people about cannabis so you can enjoy your daily 420. Get involved and speak out. Be loud and proud so that you can keep pace. Tune into the Pace Radio Show every Wednesday at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time to hear about people advocating cannabis education here at 420radio.ca. Catch Cannabis and Coffee to Marijuana live every Wednesday at 12 noon Eastern, 10 Mountain Time, only here at 420radio.ca. Join Reefer reporters Al Graham and his rotating news desk anchors Kim Cooper or Green Irene York for their weekly Reefer report here on 420radio.ca. Together, the trio spread Canadian and international cannabis news to their weekly listeners. Tune in every Monday around 4:20 p.m. Eastern Standard Time every week as these veteran news hawks discuss and give their opinion on the previous week in cannabis news. Don't forget, catch the Reefer Reporters here at 420radio.ca. Catch the wild, crazy, and the serious Friday night, 7 p.m. on the 420 Radio Show, only here at 420radio.ca.
Man, have you been to Canadays yet? Canadays, Campbellford's premier cannabis culture shop. They've got bongs, oil rigs, grinders, and papers. Everything you need for consumption. They've got soil, nutrients, and dome trays too. Everything you need for cultivation. Canadays. They've got all kinds of awesome cannabis novelties, clothing, and apparel. I know, right? It's a lot more than just a bong shop. Interested in gaining legal access? Canadays can help. They're a PACE information center. You know, people advocating cannabis education. Come by the shop and check it out. Canadays. Have your say without saying a word. Canadays.ca.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
I was at the pre-party and it was really special, you know, looking at all these different kind of, you know, terps. I'm like, wow, you know, I've never seen anything like this. So big up, man. Emerald Cup, well, look out, Raging Fire.
What aspect of it are you, intrigued about? The fact that we can now do this as a legal business?
Oh, yeah. Waited a good 40 years for that.
New innovators and the new younger crowd that's here, people that are, just turning 18 and getting their medical card and can come enjoy this cannabis. It's really awesome to be a part of this moment in history and to be a part of the culture that Tim and others have helped pioneer.
Bless up, family. This is Natalie Rise. Just want to big up the Emerald Cup and all the family involved in making this great celebration a reality. Much respect.
Hey, welcome back and thanks for tuning in to the Pace Radio Show. We are being broadcasted live at 420radio.ca. And if you can't catch the live show, you can always listen to the podcast that's posted afterwards. It's at Spreaker, iTunes, Spotify, iHeartRadio, and other social media apps. Tonight, we featured, instead of music, we featured the sounds and the music of the 2016 Emerald Cup as recorded by the Dirty Heads, who were one of the bands that has performed at the Emerald Cup in the past. Today on the program, we have Tim Blake. He is the founder of the Emerald Cup, as well as our new joint host, Julie Carollo. How did I do, Julie?
Hello.
Kirello. Hey.
It's like Kia.
Now that was the C. Okay, now you're down with the C.
Kira.
It is a tough one, I'll tell you what. That's true.
I promise I'll get it right with these signs. And hey, as John said to me when we first had him on the show, he said, that's the worst interpretation I've heard of my name. And I can get it right now. Vergados, right?
Vergados.
See?
Yeah.
See?
Let's hear Vergados.
So you there is hope. I will get it right. Yours right eventually. All righty. Okay, we're into our last segment here. We're going to run past our regular time as normal, but we'll continue on here for a bit. And I'll just hand things back over to you, Julie. You guys were going right at it there before the break, so.
Yeah, with mushrooms. I agree. I feel like mushrooms are going to go even faster, it seems, than cannabis, and I'm thrilled about it. I wouldn't have been able. I'm an herbalist, Tim. I don't know if you remember that. Studied herbology when Sage was a baby, and studied all the plants and believe in all the plant allies. And this last year, really, I wouldn't have gotten through it if I hadn't been doing microdosing with shrooms, daily microdosing and saw incredible effects with my own PTSD and my own depression and anxiety. And really, it's helped me to take my meditation to the whole next level of where my focus as a woman right now is how can I stay daily and moment by moment in alignment with my own source and my own connection, like you were pointing to, that really, the light is within. It's really about, being connected to God or our source or creation within. It's a journey within. And I've been writing a lot too, and I know you enjoy writing and thinking a lot about this and thinking about how we're really kind of the philosopher's stone. We really are learning to transmute our lead to gold, our lower vibrations to higher vibrations, our hate to love, a love of ourselves and the gift that it is to have a vessel to travel in for a lifetime, and love of others and compassion for the fact of how difficult it is to travel as a human in one lifetime. And so this is really the consciousness that the earth is propagating through her plants like mushrooms and cannabis. And I'm so pleased to see that cannabis, that mushrooms are really making, movements forward. And that companies like MAPS and Stamets and as you mentioned, pollen getting in, and obviously greats like Terrence McKenna who spearheaded these things. So,
cream always rises to the top. You can't keep that down. Good things are going to make their way back. And you got to really think about us historically as people. Even 100 years, it's a couple hundred years ago, for most of our history, we didn't have electricity, so we didn't have all this electromagnetic stuff going through us. We didn't have all these frequencies with all these radio waves coming at us. We didn't have toxic water. We didn't have toxic air. If you look at what a human is now, it's everything they can do to just survive, let alone, really thrive. And so how do we get back to thriving? People have to really work their practice. They've really got to meditate every day. They've got to get their rest. They've got to live a stress-free life as much as possible, eat quality organic foods, take in clean water before they even get to the mushrooms or the cannabis, because they really have to do everything they can to be a thriving body, and the ones that don't, then they get so much relief from the cannabis and the mushrooms because it really helps them see that. Microdosing with the mushrooms, was now they're talking about 30, 40 days, like a gram a day, is you don't get high after a couple of days. It just takes in there and it just balances your body. Kind of like with cannabis, with the endocannabinoid system, it regulates and balances the body. Well, I'm not quite sure how psychedelic mushrooms, psilocybin mushrooms, work with that, but they definitely balance the body. I've just seen a study with LSD, and the brain is like 50 times more activated when it's on psychedelics. And so it's a really great thing for us. If you look at most societies, when kids or people got to be 14, 15, 16, they took them out, and the tribes took them out and took them on journeys and taught them ways and showed them how to really become adults and how to really become spiritual beings. And that's what we've got to go back to, because we're missing that. I don't care what faith it was. We used to have real dedication to spirit, to God. And now, you really don't see, whether it's Catholics or Jewish people, a lot of people aren't really practicing their faith and aren't really in contact with spirit every day. And that's what we need to do to find that guidance and that source of inspiration. So, cannabis, anybody that knows that my uncle, the priest that's 93 years old, they finally allowed to have all this cannabis. We went in there, and they weren't giving him any of the THC, but he's having a tough time. He's got Parkinson's. He's losing control of his bowels. He's embarrassed. He's all this stuff. And they finally let him do the THC, and I gave him this really beautiful cartridge with some of Eel River Organics, really great medicine.
They're wonderful.
And he took 2 hits, and his nieces put pictures of him dancing in the living room 10 minutes later. He was smiling and up and just cheerful, and it was just like, oh my gosh, it was like such a miraculous thing just to see that joy. Yeah, and when you see it in old people, I want to just go around to senior centers and rest homes and activate people on both sides. Yeah, and on the CBD and the THC side, and just really let them, feel themselves in a much better way and get some joy in their lives. But, it's a great thing. It's wonderful to be part of it.
Across the nation. I agree with you, Tim. cannabis nursing homes, that is the leading edge. Our elderly are so disenfranchised with the pharmaceutical companies, just dosing them up to, obliteration with no thought for quality of life, no thought for anything.
Oh, they're just sucking them dry. Yeah, just going to suck them dry. It's all insurance monies and Medicaid and stuff. So they just pump them full of stuff, and they give it to them. They had my uncle on 15 different things. It's just crazy. And it's like, why you don't need that stuff? But you know what? It's part of what we've done, though. It's part of our capitalist society. The capitalists have taken over. The pharmaceutical companies and the big tobacco and the alcohol and whatnot. They've taken over. So. It's okay for them to have like 30 or 40%. They just can't have 90. And so what we got to do is we just got to have a peaceful revolution. We need a peaceful revolution to just balance it out again. It's kind of like the game's got to be fair, or else how can you have a game? There's no game. It's just monopoly, and you own everything. So I think that's happening too. As part of that renaissance, we're having this awakening where we're not happy. Look what's happening in France. People are tired of the rich having it all, and people don't have enough gas to go do their jobs. There's a revolution going on in France. It's going to happen everywhere because people aren't going to tolerate it anymore. And at the end of the day, the 1% don't have much power. It's really only the intimidation they have through their money and the press. But I think that's going to be the good thing about cannabis is it is waking people up, and people become more spiritual and they become more open. And I've always thought, why aren't there more rich people really spearheading this? Why didn't we ever have like a bunch of rich people really spearhead the cannabis movement? Because they really didn't think about it.
Yeah,
but now that's happening. Like you see, it's opening up. You've got more and more people coming out, and it's the same thing with the psychedelics.
Talked with many. Yep.
Yeah.
I talked with many. I've been meeting millionaires more regularly as I start to look for a worthy partner for Skunk as we go into the next couple of decades. But it has to be people that really believe in a green renaissance and really want to be a part of the solution and still do great business, but do it in a way that really makes an impact towards healing. And we're infusing that into the magazine more and more, Tim, and I'm really excited. I had Pato Bantan write with his wife. They travel the world.
I saw that
about this culture with cannabis, and he wrote in there about that. And I know you're a writer, and I'm excited about. I wanted to tell maybe the listeners a little bit about your routine as a writer and a person who is cultivating their consciousness. Your daily routine, like how do you get through it all? Let people know, because you have some great practices that you've had to start to initiate over time with your own health issues.
Well, I meditate every day. I've been doing meditation since I was 16, so I'm really more of a monk than I even am a cannabis person. And so my practice is very important to me. I've incorporated tarot into that, Native American medicine cards, and my own personal faith with Christ. And so I do a Buddhist chant, and then I work with Native American cards, and I do tarot, and then I pray with Christ. So I mix it all in there with everybody because I feel like they're all getting along there in heaven. There's no issues. So it's really been good as far as the health thing.
I agree.
Yeah, as far as the health thing, I have they say we have great minds and weak bodies. My family's history, we have a lot of cancer in our family. I had my mom and aunts all died by the time they were 50. I had my first round of cancer when I was 50. Metastasized bone cancer. I took it off with Native American black salve. I never went to a doctor. I was told the cancers weren't dying and I should have some major stuff, but I've already watched radiation and chemo kill family members, and I've seen the painful death. I'm not going there. So I went and found Native American black salve, and you can find that, and you can take that and put it on a skin cancer, cut it open, it'll kill it within 1 day. Absolutely 100% guaranteed. You can take it internally, too. So I killed my skin cancers. It was very painful to reclaim your body after metastasized bone cancer. I had about almost a half an inch into my ankle in the ankle, and I pulled it out of there. I pulled that right out of that bone. And then I used Simpson oil to heal it and bring it back, because it was too late for me to start using Simpson oil on a daily basis at that time. So I went through the first round, but I didn't understand gluten-free living. I didn't understand how carbohydrates turn into sugars and how they've made everything into sugars. And so a person like me that's got a natural affinity for cancer, I can't live that diet. I can't live the American diet of sugar cereals and, all these carbohydrates that turn into sugars and oils that stop my system. And so I had this wonderful lady come in, and she spent about 6 months teaching me, in the very beginning of coconut oils, and when agave was the big thing before coconut sugars. It was like way back there 10 years ago. And I learned how to live without refined oils or sugars and processed foods and all organic, and how just doing that would really push the cancers right back. And so I did that, and I've done a lot of spiritual work as far as healing modalities, Reiki, lots of shamanism, vision quests. I do it all the time. And so, I do incorporate that in my life, and that's really what I want to spend more of my time doing, is really going around and evangelizing the medicinal aspects into these in needed elderly areas and other parts of our society, and then really teaching people not only with the cannabis, but how to incorporate the other parts of their lives. It's hard. They've made it so nobody can afford to eat the way, if you live an organic, pure, high-end diet, that's an expensive way to live. I mean, if you have 3 kids at home, who can even do that? My daughters, they can't really even afford to feed their kids that way. So now all the health food stores are calling it natural. There's not really organic, but it's just no GMO and stuff. But it's not good enough. You got to really have not only organic, but you really should be eating all of like Casey O'Neill's farm-raised food, or stuff that's coming off of Josh's place or somebody else's. It's because if you get it from a farmer's market, it's going to be even better than a commercial organic in the stores. And if you do that, it's tremendous healing power in that. And energy to really sustain yourself and live a good life. So that way you can smoke more cannabis and even get higher.
Exactly. And the richness of the soil, like a lot of people still, as you said, it's sad because until we continue to push for more and more companies to adopt this ethical standard so that the cost of goods goes down for organic, and then it just becomes the new norm. Like it once was, before the chemical companies came on the scene, 70 years ago, 80 years ago. We didn't even have to. I talked to my grandma about it. They didn't have organic food. They just, Jane Goodall says it. We're going to look back on this age, this last century and a half of the use of chemicals on our foods as a very dark age in humanity. Because when you look at it from the perspective we have now, you see how incredibly foolish could we have been, and it's because of the lies that were told and the greed that was perpetuated, unchecked greed. But now, again, this is part of why we have the focuses that we do with our companies, is so that it's the social activism piece about continuing to feed the idea that if you have a rich, nutrient-rich soil, that's really the substance of what makes these foods healthy, not what they look like, but actual substance of what they're composed of.
If you look at it,
life, have us thriving.
Well, if you look at communities, regular communities throughout time, tribal communities, your elders were responsible for guiding and ensuring the sustenance and sustainability of that community. So they would never do anything like the Native Americans say, always think for 7 generations out, so that you make sure you're thinking ahead. Well, there's nobody that was the elders of our world that would sit down and say, we're going to make a better place by toxifying all of our water and food, wiping all the cannabis people and putting them in jail forever, and demonizing all this stuff. Who would do that? That's not like, there's no, moral thought there. There's no concern for humanity, and we need to, like I said before, the Emerald Cup, I mean, maybe it's harsh, but I would get rid of every politician over 50 years old. I wouldn't even let them run in America. I'd get rid of them. Everyone would be fired, and I would start over because they're corrupted. We have a corrupted society across the board.
It's basically happening.
Well, no, it is. Well, look, they are throwing them out. You're right. They're all afraid now and running, and that is what's happening. The awakening's coming in, and we need to break that down so that we can get fresh blood for people that really understand that the governments are there for the people. And corporations are not supposed to be voting and have rights, and we got to stop the way this world is and turn it into a thriving industry and a life again. And so we're going to do that. I'll tell you what, we're going to go into space. I wish we had time. The stuff that you're seeing with the space barons and Bezos and Tesla, how fast we're moving into space and what's going on. Chinese just landed. We're going to go around the moon. They landed. I mean, it's just incredible what's taking place at this point in the world. And so I really look at it as a positive thing. The Chinese are taking down their coal plants. They're planting like an acre of solar panels an hour throughout China. It's just unbelievable what's going on. And there's a renaissance to really bring this back, and I think that's going to, like Trump did, the space force that people laughed about, but now he's organizing all those departments under that space command because we're going into space, and they know it, and we're already there, and they're going to acknowledge it all. And Bezos has said, and what's already do, we could just do all of our manufacturing on other planets and asteroids, not even have anything here on Earth, and Earth could be a green oasis, just a big park. And that's what we're going to have. Earth is a big park. It's going to go back to being that. Mark my words, within 20 years, we're going to restore this Earth and take it back.
Well, I wanted to touch on that. That's so cool that you said that, because this is my first show, and you are my first guest. And I really, focus for the show is the Green Renaissance. And really what it came from is, many, many years ago, because I've also studied, Toltec philosophies and ancient wisdoms from Dzogchen to, any kind of indigenous thing I've always been fascinated with as just a reader and an esoteric. And one of the things that I had read about was the Hopi prophecy long ago. The Hopis foretold of a time, a dark time, when the rivers were dying and the oceans were dying and the animals were dying, and that the fire would walk on water, fracking, and that there would be lost generations of children, with the pharmaceuticals, and that at that time, in that dark age, that a tribe of rainbow warriors would emerge, and they would be of every nation, every race, every creed, every gender, and they would know their rightful birthright as stewards of the planet, and they would have the wherewithal to weave this understanding back into the wisdom of who we are as an integral being, humans, plants, animals, and earth, one thriving organism, as you said, one beautiful garden is really what we are capable of if we are allowed to be the way that we were intended to be. And so the Hopis foretold of all this. And so really that's the focus of this show, and it's the focus of, why I invited you on as my first guest, Tim, was because it's about showing who we are as rainbow warriors globally, who are upstanding business people, fighters, warriors, people who do not back down. We persevere, we evolve, we change, we metamorphosize. How many times have we changed form to arrive in this moment together? And it's really an encouragement, too, to anyone listening, to find ways that you can return to your rightful place as a steward. And if we can start to do it in small ways, then those small ways add up to big ways. And that's really what it's about, is little things that we can do that are going to end up with the big results, which is a renaissance.
Yeah, no, it's happening. I've read 3 books. You brought up the Rainbow Tribe. I'm reading a book about that right from Jason Quitt right now, and he's talking about that. I've been reading several books lately, and they talk about that's really come on. The Hopis did prophesize that. All the prophecies around the world are coming true right now, and people don't realize we are in that dark hour. This is really, on one side, this is really ugly. I mean, the Earth shouldn't be like this, and people are finally realizing that too, that we have a challenge. But at the same time, that hope again is coming in, and I look at it as, I've been in conspiracy theory for 40 years, and I now see all the stuff we talked about coming, where people thought I was kind of like out of my mind back then. Now it's coming in, and it's really going to be the connection to space. We went out into space a long time ago. We've been out there for a while. They never told us any of this. It's coming out. That's why they're preparing all this. And the fact is, we could be doing all of our business and stuff. We could really off-site this so we could become a green oasis. We can have this regenerate, and we're going to do that. It's just that there were a bunch of people that were selfish, and they got control of everything, and it wasn't about sharing, it was about dominating, and that matrix, that paradigm's over. And so that's what you're seeing right now. That's why it's breaking down everywhere. And I'm excited. I think we're going to see the greatest changes of the last 3,000 or 4,000 years, and maybe going back 10,000 years, in the next 20. I think we'll have the greatest time on Earth. I'm really grateful I'm still alive to see it. Oh, no, we're going to see it all.
It's true. You know about the Kali Yuga, right?
The Kali Yuga is coming.
Kali Yuga.
Yeah.
It's officially ended.
I know.
So the Kali Yuga was the death. It was the death dance, the destruction dance. It's what they speak about in the Vedic calendar. And since you're speaking on, swatches of 10,000 years, I'd love to speak on broad terms. And so really we see a true ending of the Kali Yuga. And like you said, indigenous cultures everywhere have different names for these things. The hippies called it the Aquarian Age. That's officially started. You had the Mayans and the Aztecs down there. You had the Aboriginals. You're right. It's
the Hopis, everybody.
So many different groups.
It's amazing. You look at it, and everybody said it. Everybody said the same thing. You go back, the Bible, you get, Revelation, whatever you want to call it. And so it's the darkest before the dawn. We're in that place right now. The dawn is coming. And this light is going to be so bright. Cannabis is going to be a major part of that re-education. We're going to re-educate people and really teach them how to be all they can be for themselves, and self-empowerment. And we're going to do that, and it's going to be a really wonderful, joyous process. And, a lot of that's meditation and prayer. It's not just cannabis. Like you said, it's meditation and prayer, learning how to really get back to connection with spirit. And, meditation, Qigong, there's so many aspects, Reiki. There's a friend of mine. I study all this stuff. So really quickly, there's a chiropractor that I know, Brian Armand, and chiropractors have NET now, which is neuro-emotional therapy. So what they can do is they can go back through kinesiology. You got chiropractor and kinesiologist. Kinesiology is muscle testing, where you tell the person yes or no. So they can go back with this, and they can find different spots you've stuffed in your body, and then they can figure out exactly when it happened and help you release that energy. So you don't have to go to a therapist, you don't have to go to a shrink, and you can also heal. So very quickly, what happened in this, they advanced it to where they just spent like $250,000 on a preeminent team of people to research and do a study on this with 24 case people and 24 placebos. They took 24 dying cancer patients with less than 4 months to live. They took 24 that were also that, and they didn't give them anything but a placebo. The 24 that they worked on, they went back for 3 weeks straight, every day of their life, every moment of their life, and cleared every traumatic thing that ever happened. So they can just go back, and they can do this through muscle testing. And they went and cleared all this, and then they did a study, and all 24 of those people had complete healing. And then they went back to the 24 people on placebo, and all those people were on their way to death, and they did it with them, and all 48 of those people healed. This guy that does the studies had said never in 30 years of his doing the business had he ever seen anything that was, the best results are 60, 70, 80% of something. And this was 100%. And they're going to bring this to the public now and basically say that you don't need medical doctors, you don't need shrinks, you don't need any of that. All you got to do is go to one of these re-education centers where they have these chiropractic people with NET and kinesiology, and you can spend 3 weeks there, and they can heal every traumatic thing in your life. And all of a sudden, you can be completely... just really quickly, one thing I did, I went and did some work with Brian one day, and he said, you want to do some work? And he goes down through 5 years, 50, 45, 30. So he got down to 11 months. He said, what happened at 11 months? My sister was born. Yep, that's it. Okay, well, what do you think happened? She probably got the tit and I didn't. Yep, that's what happened because he tested me. You want to get rid of that? We worked a lot through affirmations and stuff to get rid of that energy, and he tested it to make sure it was gone. So I go to talk to my sister, and I've always had a little attitude towards my sister. I never knew why. And she's like, I told it to her, and she goes, oh, you know what? Mom and I used to talk about how she used to have to crawl along the floor and make you not see her to feed me, or you would go berserk. And I had never known that I had a little thing against my sister from that little incident that got imprinted onto my body. Okay? And that was I didn't know. And so all of a sudden, can you imagine? We have like 400, 500, 600, 800 of those on our bodies. And so we're like carrying these things. Our parents, you know, the lack of affirmation, judgment, humiliation, whatever it is. So you go into these people and so just one thing for our society is we've been talking with these people about building these centers where people can come to and they can actually spend 3 weeks and be immersed in this healing energy and come out completely like 40 pounds lighter, in love with life again. Okay, now that's just one thing coming at us. Okay, there's like 20 things like that coming.
Well, and it's amazing because here I am, you know, practicing yoga and spirituality and meditation for 22 years to get into alignment, right, with Source and with myself and do these things that you're talking about. I've also practiced Reiki, and it's just amazing to me that there's a quickening going on right now where really it's like, hey, it's as simple as getting reconnected with Source before all the trauma happened. And what does that feel like when we're in that state of connection? We're thriving. We're thriving. We're lit up. We can hear our intuition. We're connected with spirit, as you said. And we're moving within space in a way that we were intended to. And it's just incredible. I mean, and these are the things that I'm excited with continuing to cover, especially online, Tim. With any of these kind of more esoteric things, we have whole sections coming on where I'm inviting herbalists, naturopaths, entheogen experts, psychedelic experts, and all of these things that you enjoy. So that, we're not just covering the top breeders in the world and the top organic growing methods, but we're really, you know, filling out all of these wonderful things. And so, you know, I invite you and invite others as well, because this is the time. It's up to us to really feed this globally so that it's, you know, so that all of us can enjoy the benefit of these things, right? And not just those of us that are aware of it right now.
Well, you know, like this practice with this NET, in the old days, this would have been just for the elite, and they would have all had it. Okay, this group of chiropractors that are bringing this out, they're not going to have any of that. They're bringing it in a major study to the public, and they're going to open it up to the public, and that's the way it should be. Beautiful. Why should it be restricted to the wealthy or the rich? I mean, everybody has the right to universal health care and a way to live and a prosperous life. So that's our God-given right, and we're gonna get that back, and it's coming back right now. So, and cannabis, I mean, I really think when they look back, when historians look back in time, they're going to see that cannabis was a major influence in this. I mean, the cannabis people and the world that we did. Because not only that, but think about all the money that the cannabis people took in. There was a huge, vast income going in there. That all funded alternative environmental issues and alternative politicians and alternative living and lawyers and all these people. It funded them all. Yeah. And
organic
so really,
farming.
Think
about
I mean, it just did.
The first one up to Mendo, the root of it, before the crazy treachery came in. Before that, they were back to earthers. That's
but they could do that. They could afford to do that because of cannabis. Cannabis gave them the right, or the not the right, but the ability to afford that, and so it could kind of instigate that beginning of that germination, which became a whole culture. It was like mycelium. We planted it, it blew up, and then it turned into this thing where all of a sudden sheriffs are sitting down with cannabis people at my place talking about how we can all live together. And then the DAs are. And then the next thing you know, you're growing cannabis legally outdoors. And then one law breaks down, everything breaks down, and now you got it over the world, and people are now seeing the medicinal effects, and we're going to have people healing all over the place, and all of a sudden people are going to be like, it's beautiful. So I still think that all those people that fought for that. Except I still think
I give thanks to them too.
Well, it's all great. Everything's good in my world. I'm so happy about really where life is going to go. Even though it's so challenging right now, even for me, I just see such a positive, beautiful future. The only thing I've got is I just would like to subsidize those poor folks that really aren't going to make it to that promised land. And I think they deserve it. And it's the way our government's, they've given away money all over the place and paying for wars all over the world. Why can't they take care of a few 100,000, farmers that spent 30 years, pushing it? But you know what? One day at a time. We'll see where it goes. You know, miracles happen, so maybe that'll happen too.
That's right. One day at a time.
Yep, one day at a time.
Well, it's just like one brick out of the wall at a time. Prohibition has come down. So.
Yeah.
Right, Julie and Tim, we're getting there towards the end of the show.
Okay.
As far as time-wise. So, Julie, have you got any final questions you want to ask Tim? That I didn't cut you off on anything?
No, just if you want, I wanted to give Tim a chance to, just share his handles of.
Oh yes, yeah.
Find him and also, I know Tim, you've written one book, so I'd love for you to share the title of the book that you've written, and then also I know you're working on more writing, and so just let people know where to find you so they can continue to see your journey.
Sounds good.
Well, I'm a pretty quiet person, but I would like to, again, say thanks to Lauren. We got our Canadian family up there on the Toronto side, and Joey, our new partner on the Vancouver side. We're really, I respect the Canadians, and I think they did a brilliant move by being the first G7 country to take on cannabis and start moving it global. I think that was a brilliant thing. It took everybody by surprise, and I think hats off to Canada. Whether you guys are having problems or not, it was a brilliant move, and I'm happy for all Canadians up there. I love my team and the people that we work with. I love this community. I love all the cannabis people. I wrote a book called The Cannabis Crusader. I brought it to the Cup. It's really about my journey. I started as a 15-year-old kid in the cannabis industry. By the time I was 20, because my father was an attorney, some of the people that were the generals at that point, 28 to 35-year-olds, they started bringing 100,000-pound loads through the 70s. I got, 1,000 pounds at a time of that. Every few months, I became one of the youngest guys at that level. That blew up into a huge business within the government, then shut it all down, put minimum mandatories, tore it all apart in the 80s. That's why it all went indoor. I've watched it all the way through. I've been part of it since I was a kid, and I wrote that first book, but I never got it edited right, and I brought it to the show too quick. So even though we put it out there, I pulled it off and didn't really ever publish that. So I've got that one sitting there, and then I did my second, third ones, which are almost done. And I've got people that have been waiting for that to do a television series in L.A. for 6 months, but I've been so busy I haven't been able to finish it. So I finally am finishing it this week so I can get all those outlines down there for this television series, and then I'm going to put my second, third books together so I have this trilogy to go out, and you guys will be seeing it. I'll have it coming up, but it's all that really matters to me is my family are writers. I'd love to be recognized as a writer more than anything else in my life, really, because my grandfather's a writer, so is my father. But as far as the books, it's just teaching and education. Basically what you got is this wild cannabis story about how this industry all came about and how it all transformed over the last 50 years, while I teach you about spirituality and UFOs and all the stuff I've been delving into since I was a kid also. So it's kind of this wild ride while you get kind of an educational, forum too. So that's enough of a pitch for me. I really appreciate you, Al, and the other Al down the backside, what you guys do, and invite me on the show and everything you guys have been putting forth and the energy and stuff. I know that nobody gets paid that much, and it's a lot of work for the love of it, and I appreciate it, because without people like you, we wouldn't be getting the word and the mission out there, and that education wouldn't be there. So journalists and radio people and everybody else are my favorite people because of what they do and for what they provide. So thank you very much. Same to you, Julie. Great. John Vergatos, I tell you what, I love you, John. You're going to be with us.
Yeah, thank you for the kind words there, Tim. Now, where can people find the Emerald Cup's website?
TheEmeraldCup.com. We're there. Instagram, too. Facebook. We always have stuff going on. You can come see it, and check us out. I think you'll be really fascinated and inspired. So I look forward to more interaction.
You mentioned earlier it was a team effort. Is anybody offhand you want to mention?
Oh, I got Jim Louie and Robbie from Red Light, and I've got, I got a huge crew. Spike Brandt, my daughter Taylor, and my nephew Chad. The Cups becomes, Hazel. I could go down. It's hard even at the Cup to even start giving all the names out because there's so many people on this crew, and it is a team. I love teams. That's the thing about me. I mean, I'm an old sports guy, but I love teams, and I love the idea in sports where it doesn't matter if you have the best player. If you don't know how to play as a team, you can be Michael Jordan. You're not going to win.
Correct.
Same with teams. If you're synergistic and you're really with a good team, everybody just that 5 becomes exponentially 25. So I have a great team. I'm very blessed and honored and humbled. I have a great community support with Julie and all these people. Our tribe rocks. The cannabis tribe rocks. That's what makes me look good. That's what makes the cup look good. That's what makes all of us look good. I'm proud of our tribe and our community, and I'd give a shout out to them. All of them for what we've done for the last 40 years and 50 years. We ought to be proud of ourselves.
Super. Thank you very much. Julie, have you got a shout out?
Well, I just want to say how proud I am of Tim and his family. Taylor Blake, she's a wonderful friend, and it just makes me so happy, Tim, actually, to see. And you and Phoebe, your partner, is a good friend as well. And when, we have a wonderful synergy there, and I'm just happy to see you enjoying your family, Tim. Taylor was married this year in a beautiful ceremony, and there's just so much joy. Phoebe and yours, little ones that are running around, and everybody's just having a wonderful time together. So family is so important to you, and as you said, you care for them deeply with your heart and your love, and I always see that, and you also practice that with your cannabis family. Through thick and thin, through tough times, and through everything, through the shitty times and the good times, I do see you attempting to practice always your humanity and finding the way towards your humanity. And I really appreciate it.
Well, thank you. And
I'm really thankful
good for you. Good for the shout out for Phoebe, because you're right. That's probably the most important team member I've got, and my kids and whatnot. And I do value. I was raised in a big family. I got 6 brothers and sisters. I've got 25 cousins, first cousins. We all spent all of our time together. I got 6 aunts and uncles. I got 6 grandkids. I mean, it's a big family, and we're very close. And I didn't realize how few people have that. And so that's one thing I really tried to be, is to really expand my family, to try to treat everybody like I was treated, like our family was treated, that unconditional love. And so I'm a hugger. I hug people. I expand into everybody. I just welcome everybody in. And I've done that for a lot of kids over the years, and I'm really proud of giving that energy off, that unconditional love, so people can feel some of that, because it's so important to have family and unity and community, and there's so many people lacking that and hurting because of it.
Yep.
It's true, and I've seen you look the other way and forgive and have compassion, and that really is the unconditional love, that we do all have weaknesses and strengths, and then I see that in you, and I do want to say thank you again, just to you for all of the hard work and tireless effort in having the only outdoor organic festival in the world, a place where we can all come and talk together and do business, great business, for the year ahead. It's such a gift to all of us, and so I'm just so incredibly thankful for it, Tim, deeply, and I don't underestimate it at all. It really is making an impact.
Well, I appreciate it. I've dodged 2 or 3 15, 20-year prison sentences. I've only gone to jail a couple times minor. I'm one of the luckiest guys alive. I've survived 3 rounds of cancer. I have a beautiful family, and I'm watching this beautiful green renaissance take over this country and world. So it's a beautiful time for all of us, and I feel like one of the luckiest people alive.
You're right. You are right there. It sounds like you've had some challenges with your health, with cancer and things, but you've got a strong family around you.
Yeah, well, I'm healthy.
Yeah,
I'm healthy,
good.
And we're good. So thank you, Al and Julie, and I'll see you soon, Julie. I'll come visit.
Okay, just let everybody know.
I'll reach out to you.
Yeah. Okay. We will be back next week. Kim Cooper will join me here on the program with her special guest. You can follow us on Twitter at Pace Radio. We're on Facebook as well as Instagram, and you can find us on the web at pace-online.ca. Thank yous tonight go out to our sponsors, Canada's largest First Nations cannabis dispensary, Legacy 420. You can be found at legacy420.com, Also to Canada Days for providing pace with a place to educate the public. And to the man medicating and loving his Shadowrizer, Al Rapp of 420radio.ca. And a big thank you to you, Tim, for coming to the radio show tonight and talking to our listeners and filling us in all about the cup and everything happening.
Oh, you're welcome. Anytime. I can't wait to get up there and visit you guys. I'll see you soon.
Julie's going to have you come back because, we spent 2 hours, and I know we didn't touch on everything, I can tell. There's more to be told.
We're both pretty verbose.
I was going to ask him about clean indoor growing, so
there's lots we can talk about. That's right.
I'll tell you what.
Do that on a future show.
Thank you so much, Tim.
Well, as you've seen, Julie and I are very verbose, so no shortage of words there.
No. Also,
Thank you.
I gotta thank my new joint host, Julie Carello. How did I do?
There's a B+.
B+. Okay, all right. I'm back up to a B+.
You're ending on a high note, Al.
All right. I'll work on that. I got another month. Okay, and always a big thank you to our listeners for tuning in to the program. Thank you, and good night.
Legacy 420 has medicinal and recreational products down to a science, literally. With 2 biochemists on staff and a chief scientific advisor, every product is tested in the Legacy 420 laboratory. Legacy 420, Tyendinaga. Open 9 to 9 every day. Visit legacy420.com.
So what are you doing? Nothing. Why not? Trying to get on this Lifestyle Radio website. Sounds like a cool website. Yeah, it's alright. Oh, I might have it. You might have it.
You're listening to Lifestyle Radio.
The opinions expressed during this show are those of the individual participants and do not necessarily reflect the opinions of their associated organizations or Lifestyle Radio.